If you were to tell my younger self, the girl that grew up right outside of Los Angeles, that loved being a city girl, that loved going downtown and walking amongst the skyscrapers, and just really loved the busyness and the liveliness of a big city, that one day she would be living in a town with around 6,000 people in the south of Spain, you would have probably given the younger me a heart attack. Hi, my name is Kirsten. I have been living abroad for 9 years and living in Spain for almost 7 years. And I make weekly videos about my life in Spain. And I also like to talk about the financial aspect of moving and living abroad. So, in today's video, I'm going to talk about small town, slow living in a small city in the south of Spain. I'm going to share some of the challenges of living in a smaller town or smaller city and some of the advantages, and kind of really give you a little bit of insight on what I really appreciate about the slower pace of life and why I now prefer it over the once desired busy, nonstop, fast paced life of a big city. So, if any of those things interest you, then make sure you give me a follow and give this video a like to stay up to date with all the stuff that I'm creating. So, as mentioned before, I now live in a small town in Spain called Los Villares. And I talked about in one of the videos, one of my past videos, which I'll link in the description, I talked about how I kind of got here and how I ended up here. But now I want to talk about a little bit more about the city itself. It is situated in the south of Spain, and it is right outside of a larger city called Jaén, which is known for its olive oil. It pretty much this town of about 6,111 people, last I checked, is quite small and quite calm. It has about, I think, two major grocery stores. We do have a medical center. We have two bakeries. But there's pretty much mostly houses and a lot of open grass and open space. Okay, so I want to start talking about some of the challenges. So right now I am walking around in my neighborhood. Um, and as I mentioned before, there's a lot of just like open space. So some of the some of the challenges of living here is that there pretty much isn't a lot of like social life or entertainment or nightlife at all, other than feria or the town festival that happens yearly. That's when there's going to be like nonstop partying, loud music, games, attractions, and things like that. But that's not really my scene. So a lot of the times, if I want, to see a movie or go to a show or go to an event, then I go to the capital, Jaén, which is about 20-30 minutes drive, to be able to get that kind of fix of social life and be around people and friends. Another disadvantage is that it really is important to have a car to live here so that you can not only get around. I think it's possible to live in this town without a car, but if you want to go to Jaén, if you want to go to the next city, if you want to meet up with friends, if you want to not stay at your home, not stay at home all the time and have like a social life, then it definitely is important to have a car. There is a bus, but the buses run every day, but at a schedule that is a little bit sporadic. It has a set schedule, but it's not super frequent. I guess that's what I want to say. So so I usually take the bus when I go into the city to meet with friends or when I go to flamenco class, but the buses aren't super reliable. And I remember one time when the bus schedule changed their system, I was literally waiting at the bus stop at the time that it was supposed to come. There was another girl waiting there with me who actually got there before me, and we waited probably 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes, and just realized that like the bus is probably not going to come. So we ended up hitching a ride to the city, to the capital city. So that's sometimes it's something that happens. Even though there is a bus, it can often be late. It can sometimes not show up. It's usually rare of it not showing up, but it definitely is rarely on time. Okay, so let's now talk about some of the advantages and one of the reasons why I really enjoy this slower pace of life. Um, Even though this is a place where, it's not like the entertainment capital of the world, it is nice to be able to kind of go choose, when I want to have more of a lively social life and when I kind of want to be more of a homebody. It makes it very easy to be a homebody here. And as you can see, there's not a lot of people. There's not a lot of traffic. There's not a lot of, every now and then you'll see people coming out to go for a walk, walking their dogs, but it is a very quiet neighborhood. You might hear right now, like some of our neighbors, because it's summer, oftentimes people will have people over for their pool parties and things like that. So sometimes some of the neighbors will put their music up a little bit louder than maybe they should. But other than that, it's really quiet, which is so nice to get a good night's sleep. And because I remember one of the challenges of living in the city and living in an apartment, particularly, was sharing walls and having to listen to my neighbor watching some action film at like 4 in the morning. And so here we don't, that doesn't happen. And usually when it's nighttime during the day, you get pretty much this. Most of the noise you get is either from dogs barking or from the birds chirping. But I think mentally, it's just a nice relief to like walk outside or be in your home and not have like the extra simulation of the loud noises of a big city. Another advantage or another thing that I appreciate about living in this smaller town is surround being surrounded by nature, like as you saw in the previous videos, previous clips. There's a lot of open space, so the air I feel here is definitely much cleaner. It still gets hot here in the summer and it gets cold here in the winter, but I feel like because there's less like cement and infrastructure, that and there's more soil and more ground, that in night particularly it'll be a lot cooler in the evening time. And it's nice to be able to just walk around in my neighborhood, which is something that I really definitely never really did when I was living in California. um, and it's nice to be able to, there's a river near where I live. There's a canyon ridge where there's a beautiful like pathway that you can walk through. So just being able to be close to nature is something that I really appreciate. Something that I really love about living in Los Villares is the access to fruit. And what do I mean by that? So in various parts, fruit and vegetables. I guess I could say like fresh harvest. I think that's the word I'm looking for. So what do I mean by that? So I think I wrote a blog about this on my Substack about Mora season, or I think blackberry or mulberry season. So we have these mulberry trees that grow in the area, and so about every May we can go and just like pick a bunch of blueberries, or not blueberries, blackberries or mulberries. I remember the first time I discovered this, we were like driving past this one street, and I noticed that there was this guy standing under a tree with like a bag, like a plastic bag, and he kept like pulling things off of the tree. And so we ended up stopping and asked him, like, what is it that you're picking? And he told me that there were moras, or blackberries or mulberries. And so ever since then, discovering that, I look forward to May so I can pick fresh mulberries. There's also a tree near us with kakis, which is kind of like pretty much a persimmon tree. Our neighbor has a mandarin tree. Mandarin tree, is that how you say it? And she lets us pick mandarins from her tree. There's also asparagus that grow, We haven't been lucky enough to be able to collect asparagus because it's kind of it because everybody in the area loves picking asparagus, and I'll share more about the asparagus picking in another video. But hopefully this coming year we'll have an opportunity to pick some asparagus. What else? We've recently found a fig tree. What else? There's also some almond trees around here. So it's really exciting for me personally, because I think that when you can pick fruit fresh from the tree or fresh from the vine or whatever, it usually, depending on where it grows, usually tastes really, really good. And it's just kind of a nice advantage and something that I haven't really experienced, something that I got to experience when I was in Panama, of just being able to pick fruit from the tree and eat it right away. So that's definitely something that I really appreciate. So here's some random things that I kind of didn't expect and that still surprised me about living in a small town. So we have this last couple of months, there's been this horse that we don't really know where it came from, but it'll randomly be like parked, or like people will tie the horse up, not tie it up, but it'll have the rope of the horse connected to like a tree, and the horse will kind of just hang out there and eat the grass or the herbs around. And then like a couple days later we'll notice that the horse is in another spot. I remember one time I like walked out to our terrace to put up the laundry, and there was like I could see the head of the horse hopping over our fence. So it's kind of random, and I don't know why. So there's a few like random things that happen in a small town that you kind of just accept. Another thing too, it can be kind of like the wild wild west here if people weren't so nice. So luckily, I think most of the people here are very friendly. When we go for walks, people say hi, people greet each other. But when I say that it's a wild wild west, in a sense, it's because there's not really a lot of local police, local law enforcement nearby. So people can kind of bend the rules a little bit in different ways, like such as sometimes people will leave broken furniture or leave large bags of trash outside of the trash can, because that's what they want to do, and even though they know that that's not correct, I don't know if it's against the law, but it's not the correct way to do things. There's really no one here to enforce it. Same goes for like picking up dog poop or keeping your dog on a leash. Like people don't always abide by those rules because there's really no one here that's going to enforce it. So luckily a lot of people here are very friendly. And when I go take the bus in the morning, when I go to the city, I am often having conversations with people at the bus stop, talking about what's going on in the town, the local gossip. We go to an artisanal bakery every couple of weeks to get fresh orders of bread. And every time I walk in, the people are very friendly. They're asking me how I'm doing. So it is really nice to have this kind of friendliness and neighborliness, if that's a word, in this city that I feel like can sometimes be harder to have in a bigger city. So I hope you enjoyed a little insight or that little preview into what it's like living in a small town. If you have any specific questions about what it's like, anything that I didn't talk about, or anything you want to know more about, leave me a comment and I'll be happy to answer your questions or your curiosities or make another video about it. And if you want to learn more and keep up to date with what's going on in my slow living small town life here in Spain, then make sure you follow my Substack and make sure you like this video and subscribe to learn more about how I'm getting on, how I'm embracing the slow life, rejecting hustle culture, and enjoying my life here in Spain.